Hi, Kyla here. On behalf of the New Earth Transitionary Government, I am going to read to you 10 chapters on the superego, narcissism, and gaslighting. This is a guide to understanding the superego, cutting cords with it, and taking your power back. Chapters 1 to 10 are as follows. Chapter 1, what is superego? Chapter 2, identifying superego. Chapter 3, narcissism. Chapter 4, gaslighting. Chapter 5, toxic masculine. Chapter 6, toxic feminine. Chapter 7, taking accountability. Chapter 8, cutting cords. Chapter 9, transforming victim consciousness. Chapter 10, taking your power back. Chapter 1, what is superego? Superego is a much more sophisticated and highly advanced form of ego. The basis of the ego mind, please see our Ascension Manual for a full understanding of the ego, is that it's a set of belief systems that creates a programming or robotic behavioral pattern. This means that you are taught to react or behave in situations based on the past, on trauma, wounding, or fear. This creates a behavior pattern that will keep you in a loop of repeating the same experiences over and over without learning the lesson. The mind is linear. It can only think logically by rationalizing, analyzing, or basing things on past experiences. It has no ability to be in the present moment of now, or to feel, access intuition, or live in a higher state of consciousness. The mind causes worry, anxiety, fear, attachment, and externalization. The mind is like a box. From the time you are born, you are taught and programmed to stay inside a particular box based on the belief systems of your parents, your friends, school systems, your race, culture, and society. The mind fears what it cannot understand, so it will always want to stay inside its comfort zone where it can maintain a false sense of security, power, and control. Those in the mind, which is around 99.5% of humanity, have a lack of feeling, cutting them off from their heart center, which is their connection to source. This puts humanity into a life-draining state, as when we are disconnected from source, we cannot sustain our own energy, and we must take from others through control dramas and siphoning of energy. Chapter 2, identifying superego. Beings who embody superego have an advanced form of taking energy that is highly masked and highly manipulative. It creates a superiority and godlike complex that creates the illusion of a divine being. However, it can also go into highly reactive and psychotic states if provoked. This is often what we refer to as sociopathic behavior. What the collective often refers to as narcissism is actually superego, and narcissism is just a symptom of the superego. It is an intense need to power over, control, and take energy from others. The main energetics of superego are as follows. Sociopathic behavior, the addiction to being right, the addiction to being perfect, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, lack of accountability, lack of self-love, the need for validation, a godlike complex, arrogance, entitlement, control, power over, lack of feeling, taking things personally, blame, manipulation, or jealousy. Beings in superego often go for those who are overly compassionate, nurturing, empathetic, and often unworthy. This enables them to maintain their control and siphoning the light energy from the empath. The empath, who still holds wounding or untransformed energy, pours more and more into the superego, seeking to save them. The superego have no ability to feel or express love, and the empath becomes drained of all their energy, allowing lower energy to fill them. Superego or empath dynamics will always result in dysfunction that typically manifest with control dynamics. The following is a summary of the control dynamics as defined by James Redfield in the Celestine Prophecy. The intimidator. Stealing of energy by threat. Intimidators get people to pay attention to them by force of loudness, physical strength, threats, and unexpected outbursts. They keep everyone on edge for fear of triggering off embarrassing comments, anger, and in extreme cases, rage. Energy comes towards them because of the fear and suspicion of the next event. Intimidators always have the stage. They make you feel afraid or anxious. The behavior may range from ordering others around, talking continuously, being authoritarian, being inflexible and sarcastic, to being violent. Intimidators are the most cut off from source's energy. The interrogator. Interrogators are less physically threatening, but they break down the spirit and will mentally question all activities and motivations. They are hostile critics, looking for ways to make others wrong. The more they dwell on your faults and mistakes, the more you will watch them and react to their every move. As you strive to prove yourself or answer to them, the more energy you send their way. All you say will be used against you at some point. You will feel as you are constantly being monitored. Hypervigilant, their behavior may range from being cynical, skeptical, sarcastic, needy, perfectionistic, self-righteous, to viciously manipulative. They initially engage others with their wit, infallible logic, facts, and intellect. Interrogators create aloof children and sometimes poor me's. Both want to escape the probing of the interrogator. Aloofness. Aloofies are caught up in their own internal world of unresolved struggles, fears, and self-doubt. They believe unconsciously that if they appear mysterious or detached, others will come to draw them out. Often lonely, they keep their distance for fear of others imposing their will or questioning their decisions. Thinking that they have to do everything on their own, they don't ask for help. They need lots of space and often avoid being pinned down by commitments. As children, they were not allowed to satisfy their need for independence or acknowledged for their own identity. Prone to move towards the poor me, they don't realize that their own aloofness is the cause of them not having what they want. For example, money, love, self-esteem, or for their feelings of stagnation or confusion. They often see their main problem as an external lack of something, for example, friends, money, education, etc. Their behavior ranges from disinterested, unavailable, uncooperative, to condescending, rejecting, contrary, and sneaky. Skilled at detachment as a defense, they cut off their own energy with phrases like, "I'm different to others. No one really understands what I'm trying to do. I'm confused. I don't want to play their game. If only I had." Opportunities slip away while they overanalyze everything. With any hint of confrontation, they become vague and literally disappear, screening calls and not keeping to appointments. They initially engage through their mysterious, hard-to-get persona. Poor me's. Poor me's don't ever feel like they have enough power to confront the world in an active way, so they look for sympathy, pulling energy towards them. When using the silent treatment, they may slide towards the aloof mode, but as poor me's, they make sure that the silence does not go unnoticed. Always pessimistic, they pull attention to themselves by worried facial expressions, sighing, trembling, crying, staring into the distance, answering questions slowly, and retelling dramas and crises. Their favorite 2 words are yes, but. They're initially seduced by their vulnerability and need for help. However, they are not really interested in solutions, then they would lose their source of energy. They exhibit over-accommodating behavior, which leads them into feeling taken advantage of, which reinforces their poor me addiction of taking energy. They have little ability in setting boundaries and limits. Behavior ranges from convincing, defending, making excuses, repeatedly explaining, telling too much, and trying to solve problems that are not their business. They open themselves to being objectified through their beauty or sexual favors and then resent being taken for granted. Poor me's sustain their victim stance by attracting people who intimidate them. Outer behavior versus inner struggle. To follow, we will discuss how these energies can be transformed. The intimidator or leader. When connected to the true source of Mother's essence, an intimidator will find more self-esteem when he or she uses his or her leadership qualities. Assertive without being domineering, and confident without being arrogant. He or she has more chance for enjoying challenges and gaining the cooperation of others. The interrogator or advocate. The interrogator transformed channels the predilection for questioning into research for the greater good rather than for energy, using more well-rounded interpersonal skills as a teacher, a counselor, or advocate. Aloof or independent feeler. Freed from the need to remain an outsider, aloofees access deep inner intuitive resources to bring wisdom and creativity to their life's work, such as being a priest, healer, or an artist. A poor me or reformer. Having experienced true nurturing and unity, the poor me is able to stay grounded in his or her own inner source and becomes a compassionate reformer, social worker, or healer. Chapter 3. Narcissism. Narcissism is the biggest symptom of the superego and often pairs with sociopathic behavior. Narcissism is defined as a disorder in which a person has an inflated sense of self-importance. This includes an excessive need for admiration, disregard for others' feelings, and inability to handle any criticism, and a sense of entitlement. The narcissism of the superego comes from the being thinking that everything is about them. This comes from their inability to take call-outs because they take everything so deeply personally. They are so deeply disconnected from their soul that they see their mask as who they truly are. This is why they are obsessed with their image, looking perfect, and addicted to being right. Any threat to the superego's mask will cause an instant reaction in these beings. Often they will immediately resort to manipulation and projection, or if they are triggered into any extreme, they will become violent, aggressive, and spiteful. They will protect their shell and their mask at all costs, as this is everything to them. The The superego thinks that everything is about them. You will notice that even in moments that you attempt to express yourself vulnerably to them, or you are calling them out on toxic behavior, they will immediately flip the script and make it about how they feel, or that you, in some way, are actually hurting them. This causes brainwashing within the empath to believing that they are, in fact, causing pain to them, and then they go into savior mode. A superego's family or friends are often the biggest enablers of them, as they create an illusionary image of perfection that everyone around puts them on a pedestal. This is a classic symptom of narcissism, as a narcissist will only surround themselves with beings that they can keep under their spell and who will continue to enable their behavior. This will often result in the superego creating a rift between you and their enablers, as they will always seek to look like the victim, to have others try and rescue them. This continues the cycle of taking and control. Chapter 4. Gaslighting. The superego's favorite tactic is commonly known as gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which a person or group covertly sows seeds of doubt at a targeted individual or group, making them question their own memory, perception, or judgment. This creates confusion within the empath, a disconnection from their intuition, and an increased need to please the superego. When one is in the experience of dealing with the superego, it can often be difficult to identify, as they can be incredibly convincing and they have the ability to mask their true intentions and darkness. However, there will always be red flags, and these will come through your intuition and knowing that something is not right. The problem occurs when these intuitive messages are bypassed, as your own ego tries to convince you that it's not that bad and that you love them. The more these intuitive messages and red flags are bypassed, the more your feeling centers and intuition gets shut down, and you will develop a deep-seated self-doubt that keeps you in the loop of seeking external validation. The black hole gets deeper and deeper and usually takes an extreme event to break the illusion down for the empath to see through the loop. Once your intuition has been cut off, you become dependent on the superego to receive validation. This is part of the control drama for the superego, as it is always seeking a way to disempower and control the other. This is the way that they can continue to take energy as the other being becomes dependent on them. Chapter 5. Toxic masculinity. In general, masculine suffers more greatly from superego than feminine, as they are more disconnected from their feeling centers and tend to be encouraged to embody toxic masculine behavior. All narcissism and superego derives from a wound, and this wound typically stems from childhood. The wounded masculine has typically suffered some type of rejection, bullying, abandonment, or even physical or emotional abuse as a child. The key here is that whatever the trauma stemmed from, it created a lack of feeling and the desire to create a false persona. Something within the mind of the wounded masculine felt unworthy of love, and therefore created a persona that would gain love from another, and sociopathic behavior in order to keep and control that love. The superego needs control in order to sustain its energy taking. This is why, most often, when you cut cords with the superego, they will act insane and often seek revenge. Then apologize for their behavior to try and get you back into their loop. Or they can become very physically or emotionally abusive, seeking to break down your boundary you created. The superego feeds off fear, because fear is exactly what fuels them. Once we can understand that all superego or narcissistic masculine are simply very damaged and wounded little boys, we can anchor into compassion for them. This does not mean that we enable their behavior or allow their energy taking. It simply means that we can gain back our own empowerment by not allowing feelings of anger or rage against them to further hurt us. The superego is incapable of giving or receiving love because the frequencies they exist in are so low. The reason that superego in masculine is so pervasive is because society, through the programming, encourages the toxic masculine behavior. This ensures that the masculine never engage their feeling centers, honoring their own inner feminine, and they continue to power over and abuse the feminine. The biggest responsibility we have is to end this cycle of extreme energy taking, is to call this energy out, cut cords with it, draw boundaries, and refuse to enable it. As a masculine, you have a responsibility to call out this behavior if seen by your friends, family, or children. Divine masculine are the protectors of the feminine and must hold each other accountable. For feminine, it requires us not to enable the toxic behavior by supporting through family members or especially in relationships. Chapter 6. Toxic Femininity. Feminine can also embody superego, and it is equally as toxic. The wounded feminine begins also from childhood, and the main frequencies of the superego feminine are abandonment, lack of masculine support, abuse, disempowerment, and unworthiness. The superego feminine is one who is also cut off from her feeling centers and often has had her heart broken many times. This results in the feminine seeking to be like the toxic masculine, believing that this will prevent her from being hurt. This is a feminine who seeks to maintain power through sex, control dramas, and creating a persona that will attract the greatest amount of attention. This narcissism is fueled in this day and age by social media and the glorification of the over-sexualized female. Social media has enabled feminine to create personas that attract as much validation and attention as possible. These feminine use the lower sexual energy as a means to use the masculine for gain, rather than seeking divine masculine who will support their soul growth. They seek lower masculine who will continue to enable their bitch and whore programming. Because source is feminine, the feminine naturally have the ability to connect into this creator power and must be very conscious about the way that they use this. The superego feminine behavior cannot be enabled as it creates more and more dark feminine energy, which further separates the unity between feminine and further creates toxic dynamics with masculine. As a feminine, showing compassion to these feminine is usually a successful way to help them break through their wounding and damaging by rehearting them of their hearts and the power that truly lies in being who they are. Masculine must cut cords with this energy and look at their own dysfunction that is drawn to this energy as well. Chapter 7. Taking accountability. If you come to the realization that you have been in a relationship of any kind with a superego or narcissist, or you may realize that you yourself have been embodying these lower frequencies, the first step is to take accountability. Once we take accountability for embodying these energies or enabling these energies, we take our own power back. There is absolutely no judgment in 5D, therefore we cannot judge ourselves or anybody else for embodying these frequencies, as this is what they were programmed to be. This does not justify the behavior, however, but simply allows us to forgive and let go of pain and suffering caused by these relationships. As an empath or someone who ends up around or in relationship with the superego, taking accountability for manifesting that experience is the first step to healing. You are not a victim. Reflection on how this energy was a match to your vibration is essential to transforming any lower attachments, victim, unworthiness, or shadow side that may still be an unconscious match to the superego. The savior programming runs deep for those who attract superego or narcissist types. The savior programming believes that we can save another, fix them. We cannot save anyone but ourselves. Trying to save or fix another is simply a denial of yourself and your own journey. Chapter 8. Cutting Cords. Cutting cords is one of the most powerful tools to use when drawing boundaries with a superego. Drawing a physical boundary is essential. No physical contact, no communication, for example. Plus, cutting cords. Cutting cords means actively stating out loud that you are cutting all energetic cords to any lower frequencies. The following is a mantra that can be repeated as many times per day as necessary and can also be put into a ceremony and burned. I cut cords with all lower energetics, with everyone, everything, and all events. I reattach all my energetic cords to everything that is whole, pure, true, and in alignment with love. I return all energy to sender. The physical cutting cords with the superego is the hardest, as this challenges their control and typically provokes a reaction from them. The main thing to re-heart here is that the superego will use all kinds of tactics once you cut cords with them, physically and energetically. Their main tactics will vary from threats, fear, victim, guilt, blame, and justification. All of these are still lower frequencies and must not be enabled. Ceremonies are encouraged, especially if there has been sexual relations with the superego, as this creates a deep energetic cord that can be difficult to cut. This should be part of your daily spiritual discipline of cutting cords and practicing the mirror technique to increase self-love. The mirror technique is simple. Write down 20 of the divine traits. This can be found in the Mini Ascension Guide or Ascension Manual, and state them with I am in the mirror daily as many times as you feel guided to. This is the first step to reclaiming your power and anchoring in self-love. Chapter 9. Transforming Victim Consciousness. During the process of cutting cords from toxic beings, you will experience moments of sadness, depression, anger, resentment, regret, self-hatred, etc. Do not go into blame. The moment you begin to blame the superego or narcissist for your emotions or your experience, you create that cord and will continue to manifest those energies to you. We must take accountability for all experiences, including those in which another being hurt, manipulated, or powered over us. Why? Because we allowed it. The shadow side within us allowed our energy to be taken, and that is the part within us that needs to be healed. Humanity is continuously stuck in victim consciousness, which prevents them from actually transforming. We are all God with God. All who are connected to Source are the embodiment of God, and we must own our power and realize that we are constantly creating our reality through what we chose and what we allow. Chapter 10. Taking your power back. Taking your power means that you own all of your own experiences and transform all blame and guilt. Reflect on all the patterns, behaviors, and addictions that you have been programmed with and actively choose to make a different choice each time an experience is presented to you. Each time we make a different choice and we choose love, courage, strength, integrity, and honor, we put ourselves on a higher timeline where we will no longer manifest lower experiences. Our lower choices are always made out of fear. Fear of being hurt, fear of lack, fear of not being able to care for ourselves, fear of judgment, fear of failure, etc. None of these are real. They are simply projections of the mind. No matter what a superego does to create fear within you, know that it is only the illusion of power they hold. When you no longer feed that false power, it dissolves. This is the superego's biggest fear, that it no longer has control or the perception of power. This is how we collapse the victimizer paradigm. If you are currently embodying superego or leaving any kind of relationship with a superego, please feel free to book a session with us or contact us for assistance.